aerospace is an area of action. There is not only action of technology, there is action of thrill. To be a fighter pilot, to be an astronaut, to be flying and going to space, to doing a skydiving from the air, to do paradrops, phenomenal. If I was to ask myself that what would I like to be in my next life, and if I can say that I want to be a fighter pilot again, that shows how thrilling or great this experience has been. There is action for everybody. There is action for technical person, for an cyber expert. There is action for a pilot. There is action for the guy who handles weapons, or the guy who's going to design hypersonic weapons. So there is action for everybody. We need guys who are patriotic, who are nation first, who are going to do a great job defending this country, and yet enjoying good quality life and enjoying a good quality profession.
Hello and welcome to a very special podcast today, as we have our guest who is highly accomplished and highly decorated officer of Indian Air Force. We have on our podcast today none other than Air Marshal Anil Chopra, retired, Param Vishesh Seva Medal, Ati Vishesh Seva Medal, Vayu Sena Medal, Vishesh Seva Medal, who is not only an ace fighter pilot, but a qualified flying instructor, a test pilot, and a pioneer of Mirage 2000 fleet, one who has commanded a Mirage 2000 Squadron and a flight test center, aircraft system and testing establishment at Bangalore, one of the premium institute of Indian Air Force. He has been the team leader of MiG-21 Bison Upgrade project in Russia for over 4 years. He has commanded operational air bases in both western and eastern sectors. He was head of IAF in J&K and head of operational inspections of the IAF. And I think we could not have asked for a better personality than him, especially in the backdrop of two ongoing conflicts in Europe and West Asia. Let us welcome Air Marshal Anil Chopra.
Yeah, Devesh, firstly, thank you for inviting me for this podcast. And I must thank the Data Security Council of India for taking this lovely initiative to educate the general public, especially the professionals, on some important subjects like we are going to discuss today.
The conflict which is going on in Europe today and what is happening with the Hamas and Israel, sir, I would like to ask you, sir, with your kind of experience, you are in Russia also there. You spent around 4 years there, sir. And Indo-Russian collaboration you have seen, and you have been an operational commander, sir. How do you see the current Russia-Ukraine conflict impacting the aerospace partnership per se?
Yes, the world is at war. We have conflict in Ukraine. We have Israel-Hamas conflict going on. We have a crisis in the Red Sea. And these crises are bringing in new dimensions of warfare. And especially when it comes to aerospace, the dimension is huge. The technologies are putting in question some of the established norms of tactical and air combat ethics that we have known till today. So let us look at Ukraine and Russia war. Huge asymmetry. The Russian Air Force is close to 12, 13 times larger than Ukrainian. Ukrainians have got similar aircraft, similar systems, but Russians over the last few years had, gone ahead. They have a fifth generation aircraft. They have hypersonic weapons, which are actually being used. Yet, world is questioning, how come Russia, with such huge asymmetry, could not run over Ukraine in a period of a few weeks or at best a few months. But that did not happen because there were tactical and technical mistakes perhaps made by them. Today space has become a big enabler for all combat on surface, subsurface, in the air. And there was a need for them to run a campaign, suppression of enemy air defenses, which involved not only attacking air defense systems on the ground, but also using electronic warfare, cyber, psychological warfare, and various other means to neutralize the air defenses. Of course, the Ukrainians got a huge support from the West in terms of air defense systems. And this thing that has come out very clearly, how Ukraine could ensure air denial. Normally we thought the Russians would be achieving air superiority, but they were denied air. Today Russian aeroplanes cannot fly over Ukraine. Because in the first 2 months, they lost close to 50 aircraft from air defenses. Shoulder-fired man-pads have done exceedingly well. They are mobile. Other mobile systems, they will shoot and scoot. They will leave the space from where they left. So there have been many things which have contributed to the air denial to Russians. The Russians were forced to use expensive standoff precision weapons, which cost quite a bit of money, and to replenish them, there are dynamics. So this is how we look at underutilization of space, cyber, electronic warfare, psychological warfare, and not carrying out a full-fledged campaign, I think is mad.
You mean to say, sir, the conventional techniques of war, which we have been seen from our childhood days, and today we are moving into the kind of a hybrid war kind of a scenario, or unrestricted warfare, which we call a new generation warfare. And if we see the history, sir, what has happened between the Israel and Syria, when Syrians were creating one nuclear facility, and they were having 12 AD nodes. And the story which we read, they say the Syrians, they took 9 aircraft took off from Israel. And at the border, the 3 came back and they destroyed one air defense node at a Khyber place. But they were having 11 more. But the story says that there is a unit 8392 is a cyber warfare unit. And they say they neutralized those 11 AD units, and the aircraft were not visible on the screen of the operators in the Syria. The screen remained blank for that 18 flying minutes, and Syrian aircraft became stealth. So I think the technology which was demonstrated in 2007, today I think what you have just said, whether it is being still used or are not used to that potential, from your talk, it appears to me that it has not been used to that potential. That's why the war is still going on. Because Russia, having the fleet of aircraft is huge, along with these kind of cyber warfare capabilities. So in this particular thing, if I may ask you, with the kind of rapid advancement in technology, including artificial intelligence and cyber warfare capability, as I mentioned, what has happened in the past, how do you envision the integration of these technology reshaping the modern warfare strategies? And what challenges do they pose for defense forces, particularly in India?
Some years back, Devesh, we used to talk about network-centric warfare.
True.
Now it is networked warfare. Means every system is talking to each other. It's a system of systems approach. Whether it's the sensor sitting in the space on a satellite, whether it's an airborne platform, whether it's something moving on the ground, everything is networked. You could be having a sensor in the air, but actually the firing unit could be on the ground or could be in the space or the other way around. So what has happened is, if the war has to be networked, has to be system approach. One platform will do one thing, second will do another, and they all will be talking to each other. There will be data links, there will be secure data links, they'll be sharing videos, they'll be sharing audios, other data, etc. So when the operations are going to be networked like this, there is a great importance now that if I want to neutralize your capability of this network, I must somehow interrupt your network through a cyber attack, through a electronic attack, whether your data link, it's a optical data link, is it a electronic data link, how will I jam it, how will I interrupt it? So the entire warfare of the future, because everything is networked, the systems are networked, decision making is networked, AI has helped supporting quick decision making, the Udal loop has got shortened. So therefore, there is a need for us to understand the importance of AI and cyber security, cyber networking, cyber attack, and the entire gamut of cyber warfare, because that is where the action is. The systems are talking. We have to stop them from talking to each other to disrupt them. Yes.
Absolutely, sir. Very well articulated. And going further on the same dimension, sir, we see today the deployment of swarms. When we say number of drones are flying, we call it swarming of drones, and UAVs coming into play. So given the evolving landscape of these kind of platforms, unmanned aerial platforms, how do you perceive their role is shaping the future military operation and national security. You already mentioned about the role of cyber and the networked systems. But when you are flying a drone, definitely there is a radio link between them, and they have got a strategic value also. Instead of flying an aircraft with a pilot in the border areas where he can be shot, here you have multiple drones which can do your job. So, in the context of India's strategic interest and defense capabilities, how do you see these kind of unmanned area systems, or you may say, because I wrote one article of yours whether you spoke about crewed and uncrewed teaming, which generally people say MUMT, manning unmanning teaming, how these things are going to shape the strategic context.
Yeah, Devesh, I must tell you that drones have democratized air power. What I mean by democratizing air power is that earlier only big powers, America, Russia, now China or India, they could have a large number of assets. They could have, which would cost a lot of money, and they will be going deep. They will have a lot of expensive weapons. But drones are relatively cheap. Yes. You can buy in much larger numbers. You know how much does a modern fighter aircraft cost? A Rafale costs $90 million. And how much does a drone cost? A small drone may cost as little as $2,000, but a reasonably good drone with some weapon on board will cost $10,000 to $15,000. So first thing is that drones have, even a poor country, a small country, can afford to have large number of drones. The terrorist groups like the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, they are all using drones because they are cheap, easily available, off the shelf, COTS items. So drones have made a big change. Now imagine if a single drone were to knock off, which has happened in Ukraine war. They have knocked off tanks. A kamikaze drone, a single drone has gone and hit and knocked off a very, very expensive tank which cost close to $25 million. And the drone, as I said, has been very cheap. Similarly, we saw in Israel when the Iranians or the Houthis made attacks with a large swarm of drones or a combination of drones and cruise missiles. Very expensive air defense systems like Iron Dome have to use to neutralize. So world is talking about cost and return impact of using cheaper yet very effective systems like drones and drone swarms. And of course, we all know that during the Ukraine war itself in the last 3 years, a lot of new ideas have come out how to neutralize these drones, because ultimately the world has to learn to live with the presence of drones and drone swarms, which will be coming in large numbers. And therefore, the success rates of neutralizing the drones, whether it's through electronic means, whether it's using, sniper guns, whether using firing a net to grab the drone, or or jamming the GPS or link. Various systems are there. So drone and drone swarms have made a difference. And ultimately, in the long term, every country, including India, we are working on MUMT, manned unmanned teaming, which I call, because I don't want I want to be gender correct. So I said crewed, uncrewed teaming, and that has, I think, is going to make a big difference. The dirty missions will be done by the fellows who will go ahead, who will be some kind of unmanned systems, and the main fellow who has to come or take a decision making will be the mother aircraft, 1, 2, 3, whether they are strike aircraft, whether they are large transports, combinations will be worked out. So there is huge future in crewed, uncrewed systems.
Sir, if you allow me, for the benefit of the audience, I was reading one of the articles you said, loyal wingman. Can you just elaborate what is loyal wingman?
So when you talk of crewed, uncrewed, systems, loyal wingman is another aircraft, but he doesn't have a crew in it. So, very small will be drones, but a loyal wingman would be, normally when we fly in fighters, in combat, we are 4 aircraft, 6 aircraft, 10 aircraft formations, all are manned by, all are expensive aircraft. But now in a loyal wingman, one of them will be with the pilot, let's say Rafale, and with him will be 4, 5, 6, 10 loyal wingmen crewmen who will be much cheaper, will not have a crew, but will have dedicated different missions, and they will perform their own tasks. They will be retrieved. The control will be with the crew here in this single aircraft, or could even be on another aircraft which is not in the near zone of the combat, or could even be with the ground. So there is this loyal wingman concept, which is an extension of more sophisticated thing aspect of the uncrewed crewed system. Yeah.
So, as you mentioned about the capability of drones and UAVs along with the fighter aircraft, sir. So, when we talk about our adversaries, one sitting in north, one sitting in west, so how do we balance the air power across Himalayas if using all these combination which you mentioned about?
Yeah, let me split this into two aspects. One is the conventional, where are we standing across the Himalayas? You must understand, yes, the PLA Air Force is about little more than 2 times the size of the fighter strength of Indian Air Force. Maybe similar is the ratio to 2.5 times in AWACS, in flight refuelers, and some other types of aircraft. But China is 2.5 times the size of India. It's a much larger country. They have a much greater threat on the eastern seaboard. So therefore, then how many airfields do Chinese have across the border? Only 11. And out of these 11, only 2 are Air Force airfields. And the remaining 9 are civil dual-use airfields. They're all at very high altitude. Most of them at 10,000 and above feet. 2 of them are there at around 5,000 feet. Look at us. We've got 25 to 30 airfields, all at much lower altitudes of 2,000 feet. So therefore, the number of aircraft that we can face China across Himalayas will be more. The number of missions that Indian Air Force will be able to launch will be much more. So therefore, despite the fact that the Chinese Air Force is much larger, they have a 5th generation aircraft, they're going to soon have a stealth bomber, they have lots of, we don't have a 5th generation stealth aircraft yet. I may not have for another 8-10 years. So considering that, all I want to highlight is, and I want to reassure our countrymen, that we are sitting pretty. We will be able to launch much larger. And similarly, not only the Air Force, the Army, the number of people, Army, troops that are sitting across the LAC is more than those sitting across the LAC from the Chinese side. I also want to highlight that, Chinese haven't fought a war for a very long time. We have had 4 major wars. We have fought in Kargil. We have fought a war at Himalayan Heights in Kargil. So we have a war experience. We are exercising with all air forces of the world. The Western air forces, the Middle East countries, the Russians, the Australians, you name it, we are exercising. They are not exercising. They are exercising only with Pakistan. So there is a big advantage that we have. Yeah.
Sir, you have already spoken about how we are at advantage with China. They are not fighting war for long, and even if they are doing exercise, they are doing with a country which is not at that level, and we are having international exercises with best of the countries. So please enlighten us when we talk about Atmanirbharta and aerospace sector, sir. So on fighter production, what is the ecosystem in India and how it is evolving? And on the same line, where we, in helicopters and even in transport, do we have a very fertile ecosystem of production of fighter aircrafts and other ancillary equipment, sir? Because you are the person who has been dealing with this. And in your opinion, I'm just connecting it with another question. What key technological advancement do you believe are essential for India's aerospace sector? And how can international partnership contribute to achieving these advancements while safeguarding national interest, of course?
Yeah, Devesh, it's a big question, but I'm going to break it up into smaller parts. Firstly, we must understand that during the recent wars, supply chain dynamics have come to the forefront. Whether the sanctions can be put, whether the supplies can be stopped in this while they're transiting by sea, big issue. Second, if the wars are not going to be short and swift, and they are going to extend into few years. That means the amount of ammunition, the munitions, the weapons that you require are quite a bit. That means I should either have means to import or acquire these systems from abroad, or must have production capabilities which I can give surge production, so that when war starts, I am not dependent on others, but I also have the capacity to increase production quickly within my own country. So, keeping this in mind, second point I want to mention before I talk about the ecosystem. Now, no permanent friends and permanent enemies. The guys who are showing you today, Russia is very close to us. We at one stage had 85% of Indian armed forces of Russian origin. Today, also nearly 60% of armed forces of Russian origin. Russia has become very close to China. They have become dependent after the Ukraine war. China and Russia have been pushed together as friends. Now, if they have become together, and Russia is our main source, if we were to tomorrow have, God forbid, a conflict with China, will Russia give us the kind of support that it was giving in the past? So there are issues. So in the long term, if we, India, which is already the 5th largest economy in the world and will soon be the 3rd largest economy, we are the 4th largest military power in the world, have to actually sit on the global high table. We must become self-sufficient in military. And what is the current position is what your question is. Yeah. And I must tell you, in the 1960s when we made HF-24, we had nearly made a world-class aircraft, but we could not finally achieve our goals because we could not get a good matching engine, aero engine for that. And after that, for some time, because of the technologies were not coming from the rest of the world, we were struggling along slowly, acquiring more and more systems from abroad. But I must say with pride that since 2000, when 2001, the LCA made its first flight, though we have done it slowly, I think we have done it well. LCA has an excellent record. We have learned some of the things the hard way. We have made the control system software, which nobody else was willing to give us, which was very important. All the composites on board, the LCA are made by us. Today, as per what the government has laid in the parliament, 50% of the LCA by value is made in India, and 50 are imported. And in that, the major component that's imported and is very expensive is the aero engine, which costs nearly 30% of the cost of the LCA. And then, of course, there are many avionics. Even till recently, we were having an Israeli radar. There are many other systems. Some weapons are still imported, though many of them are coming up. Around 75% by LRU is Indian, but those LRUs could be very, very small. So what I'm saying is we have finally come of age as far as fighter aircraft building ecosystem is concerned. We have only 50 LCAs. Our neighbors, JF-17, they've got 150 of them. We need to increase production. Plans are already afoot. The third line of production is also being opened. LCA orders, 200 LCA Mark 1 and 2 orders are already been given by the Air Force and the government. So therefore, the orders are in place. Only thing we have to scale up production and okay. But a much bigger thing is the AMCA. It's a 5th generation aircraft. It requires stealth technologies. We have not yet mastered. We are still learning. So in the fighter ecosystem, we are there, but we have some distance to cover. Now let me talk about the helicopters. And I'm very happy to say that in helicopters, we are doing well. Great. Over 400 ALH variants, or LCH, ALH, Rudra, they are already flying. 1,000 additional helicopter orders from the Army, Navy, Air Force, civil agencies already with the HAL. HAL has set up the factory, which was inaugurated by the Honorable Prime Minister, in Tumkur, which will Presently, they're making about 36 aircraft a year. They'll go up to 60, maybe 90 aircraft a year helicopter. So I think in helicopters, we are okay. But the next logical step in helicopters is to make a larger helicopter one day to replace the Mi-8. So for which IMR medium helicopter work is in progress. And I hope by the deadline of 2026, they will do the first flight. And lastly, the transport aircraft ecosystem. You know that for many years, we made the Dornier and the HS748 in India under license production. So we know how to assemble the aircraft. But time has come for us to make our own aircraft, our design, our intellectual property. We are making C295. By the time the last aircraft rolls out 10 years from now, 80% of the aircraft's systems will be from India. But it's not our design, and therefore time has come. Chinese are already flying their own airliner. So we must start working towards our own regional jet or regional airliner, at least of a 737 class. My last point on this transport fleet is that Air India and Indigo have ordered 500 Boeing 737/320 class aircraft. We should have, as a nation, been able to arm twist Boeing and Airbus to set up a plant in India to make these aircraft in India.
Very well said.
And not only that, similarly, see, when you buy one aircraft, you have to buy a large number of engines. There are 2 engines, but the engines have a life and you have to replace them. So number of engines that you have to buy is hell of a lot. And it's important that we should ask some, either Pratt & Whitney, GE, Rolls-Royce, to set up engine factory in India. So this is something which we all analysts have been writing and trying to urge the government that we must use. We are the largest market in the world as far as aerospace is concerned. Chinese are becoming independent. So everybody is wooing us, and we must take the advantage of this to get.
I think, sir, you have made a very good point that government should think about this. While you are ordering so many aircraft, they should establish some kind of production here in India, so that not only we become Atmanirbhar, but we will give employment to our people. That is very, again, important aspect. And secondly, sir, very encouraging to listen how the ecosystem in India is growing in the aerospace domain. And sir, we keep on listening that Indian Air Force General Chief mentions in his speeches that we are moving into domain of space, and very soon the IF will become Indian Aerospace Force. This we hear, sir. So your comment on merging of air and space domain and how important it is, sir, in current times.
You know, firstly, I must say that space has become a very, very important, all-encompassing domain. Because whether it's your navigation, whether it's targeting, whether intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, everything that happens on Earth is dependent on. You know, you and I can't drive a car. We go to, I have come from home. If I didn't have that Google map and GPS, I wouldn't reach this place so smoothly as I did. So similarly, everything that we are doing, our entire life, our delivery systems are, everything is controlled by space, and not only that, all the apps, the connectivity, the communication, everything is from space. So space has become very important. And therefore, if you are my adversary and you are going to use space for military operations, I would like to neutralize your assets, your sensors, your satellites in space. So space is becoming not only a domain which is going to support operations, it's also becoming a domain where people will try to neutralize your capabilities, because the impact is going to be huge. As far as atmosphere is concerned, we are all known, ever since aviation, we are all flying. But there is this gap. You know, space normally starts at 100 kilometers and above. I mean, that's the norm that's evolved over the, years. Between 100 and the fighter aircraft or transport aircraft or normal aeroplanes, which are in the atmosphere, they fly 20, 22 kilometers, 23. So between 23 kilometers and 100 kilometers, there is a zone called near space.
Near space.
But this near space is being used already for many years. Why? All these fellows, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, some of the other fellows, they are all transiting and then coming back. Some of them are going to space and then coming back. And now we have high altitude balloons. We all heard about the Chinese balloon which was flying over USA and USA shot it down. They are all in the near space zone. So near space is going to become more and more active. Why air, near space and space must be, because they are contiguous domains. You know how we do combat in the air, how we engage targets air to air. Similar will be engagements from air to near space. Similar will be engagements from air to space.
Space to air as well.
So therefore, these are contiguous domains. And it's not that the Indian Air Force is talking, the Air Chief has said, okay, as if we are trying to grab a domain for our own selves. No. Look at others. Americans have put the air and space under same secretary, under the Air Force Ministry. The French Air Force is now called French Air and Space Force. The British joined up air and space into single. Russians have had air and space together for a long time. Only the Chinese haven't done it. But even in the new, that ISF, the new change that they brought in recently in their structures, when they closed up SSF, they have brought in aerospace elements. So if the rest of the world is doing, and these are the people who have been leading in aerospace for all these years, it's the natural, logical.
The government is doing, it's a bit like we had a anti-satellite kind of a weapon system created, and we succeeded in that. So the will is there, and the might has to increase of the Air Force. Defense Minister is making.
He's made a statement that very soon you will have an aerospace force in one of the Air Force events. Yeah.
I think, sir, you made a very good point on this. Sir, a little different question, because we are seeing your CV, you have done a lot of things on the environmental aspect also. So your involvement in environmental matters, how can India balance the environmental impact of aerospace activities, such as drone operations, with the national security imperatives? If you can throw some light on that.
Yeah, just last year I was in Berlin to attend the conference on climate change and security. I attended a NATO panel. I was a speaker. I also went to Hague for a similar, and I've come and written about what is the feeling. For a long time, people thought that aviation and military are contributing to the carbon emissions. But the truth is not. The truth is, 60% of the carbon emissions in this world are for electricity generation. Because electricity is required, it's huge quantity, and either you must, of course, notwithstanding nuclear, only 3%. 3% of the electricity generated in India is from nuclear. The other renewables like solar, wind, etc., catching up, but bulk of it is still on fossil fuels, on coal, gas, oil, etc. So, firstly, I want to say that we are not good, but I must tell you, the ICAO for airlines and various other agencies, including our DGCA, they are very, very strict. They are setting emission standards. The aero engines are improving. The aircraft designs are improving. The noise pollution is being reduced by air engine designs. The approach roads to the airports are being controlled. The colonies, the people who are living on approach paths are being looked at. The profile on the approach when an airliner comes is being controlled to make sure that the noise levels reduce. There are also waste management issues. I've written extensively on this, the waste management at an airport. The amount of waste, oil, lubricants, batteries, computers, food waste, you name it, is being generated. And how smoothly and safely that is being removed is an issue. And militaries, air bases, all air bases of the Air Force and the harbors. And we are looking at the waste management, carbon emissions, as very, very responsible people, if I may say, right up to Siachen Glacier, we are trying to clean up. Yeah.
Sir, very well said. And this is something very interesting, because what sir was mentioning about the air bases, we generally have FOD parades before we take a flight. You clean the runway, but still the human element is involved, despite having machine which are cleaning this thing. So we have a parade kind of a thing. The people go and see if any pebble is there or any leftover of the aircraft or nut bolt is there. Basically, in small little thing can damage the aero engine. So what sir has mentioned, this culture is imbibed in the Indian Air Force officer and men. And what he was mentioning about the civil airport, the cleaning and everything, I think it's a very big thing, sir, which you have mentioned that we are not contributing. It is the other way around.
Yeah, so many other.
Very interesting aspects are today we see deep fakes coming into market, and people are throwing disinformation, misinformation, and what happens is the opinion of people change about the organization, about the country where they live. They start hating their own country because something is wrong is happening. But you being in the public domain for so many years, sir, so given your public engagement as a defense analyst, I'm just framing a question like this: how do you believe effective communication can shape public perceptions and policy discussion on aerospace initiatives, including cybersecurity and international collaborations?
Let me explain this. Till today, the Americans believe that the last presidential election was influenced by the Russians through these fake media information presence.
Yeah.
So, and they're already talking that the Russians will do it again. And Putin has denied it, but said that if we do it, then we deserve to do it. So the point is, that Crimea was won, a referendum was held in Crimea to say that they want to join with Russia before Russians went and took over Crimea in 2014. It was an operation entirely through psychological warfare, entirely through information warfare, entirely through fake, messaging. That entire war has been won by this. Extensive use in Ukraine by both sides. The West helped Ukraine, but the Russians are masters at it. China, global news, CGTN, all handles of China are there. They are actually propagating fake news or a narrative, if I may use the correct word. So if that is the case, I have to influence. If I can win over the hearts and minds of masses, 1.4 billion Indians, if I can impact their minds, then I don't have to fire bullets. Because these guys themselves, see what's happening in US today. In every university and college, there's chaos taking place because there is a narrative being built by whosoever is the interested party to build a narrative against the Israeli action in Gaza. So it is not, we are not making generic talk. All this is physically happening. It was happening for centuries. In old times, people used to throw leaflets, into the camps of the enemy, at night or something like that to influence. But now they are electronic. The biggest thing is that now the information flow is instant. And the speed and range and the distance that the information, covers, that makes a big difference. You can say that I will allow only 5 forwards of WhatsApp. But I could be forwarding it to 5 groups. In each group, there could be 100. I could use the broadcast mode where I can put that information to a much larger people. We know what's happened in Kashmir Valley. Yes. How misinformation was spread very, very quickly. And unfortunately, human mind is networked in such a way that we pick up negative information faster. So therefore, you are a specialist on, cyber information, AI, etc. So you will understand.
Sir, I actually wanted to ask you because the reason is this: the ongoing conflict in Hamas, Israel, what we are seeing, Russia, Ukraine, we are seeing. So I see a lot of things are happening on the cognitive domain. You are affecting the people using a cyber influence operation. I'll not say information warfare. I'll not say electronic warfare, because in electronic warfare, you're damaging a system. You send an EMP pulse. In cyber warfare, you are using one and zeros to hack the machines and extract the information. But here, you're hacking the brains of people. You're creating a narrative. Here's a propaganda warfare. As we mentioned earlier, when you talk about the hybrid warfare, where the Russians talk about new generation warfare, they talk of everything. Where cyber diplomacy also comes into play. Then they talk about the information warfare. Then they talk about the electronic warfare. But sir, the most important thing, which you mentioned, is cognitive warfare. That is the cyber influence operation, which we have seen an experiment happening in India. A lot of people don't know. In Bangalore, what happened, sir? Our Northeast people, they were residing in Bangalore, working in various places. Suddenly, two videos came after them, and they want to throw them out because they are taking their jobs. And there was a mass exodus of people at the airport, at the bus stand. Stampede took place, sir. And this was an experiment carried by somebody. And now we are seeing everybody, like with China, you talk about Russia, you talk about America, you talk about Cambridge Analytica, which they have accepted. They did influence the minds of people and they voted for a particular. I think, sir, somewhere down the line, we have already discussed about the cyber warfare, and you have very nicely elaborated how it is being utilized along with the conventional technique. I think we have to take cognizance of that.
You're a specialist. You're an expert in this domain. So I may be an expert in aerospace, but you're an expert in this domain. I must mention that there are two aspects. One is to defend ourselves, and one is to have offensive capability. First stage is to be able to defend, whether it's going to be a cyber attack on our minds or it's going to be on our financial system or wherever operations. So the second is we should also have the offensive capability because you have to degrade the other side. Yeah.
And sir, since we are talking on the subject, the AI is actually have changed the ball game altogether. Whether in a defensive operation or offensive operation today, AI has changed the entire gamut of cybersecurity because you can design the malware, you can craft the malware using the AI. And again, if you're a smart person, you can design your system in a fashion that any anomalies in the behavior you see, it can read and drop the packet. I think AI is going to play a major role in future cyber warfare because it is enhance your capability as well as it will enhance your defensive capability as well. But now the person who uses the AI will be a winner. This is what I personally feel. And
no, I'm an author, and I must tell you that a few days back somebody said, "Why don't you start using Chat GPT?" I said, "No, I'm an author. I would like to write what I think is correct. The possibilities are huge, and we have to take our own calls." Yes.
Sir, if you could distill your extensive experience to one piece of advice for aspiring fighter pilots or those entering the aerospace industry, what would it be, sir?
You know, I must say that aerospace is leading cutting edge of technology. Means all the top technologies of the world, I can prove it to you with facts and figures, come into aerospace. So aerospace is an area of action. There is not only action of technology, there is action of thrill. To be a fighter pilot, to be an astronaut, to be flying and going to space, to doing a skydiving from the air, to do paradrops. Phenomenal. So there is a phenomenal. I do some motivational videos for young people, and I say that if I was to ask myself that what would I like to be in my next life, and if I can say that I want to be a fighter pilot again, that shows how thrilling or great this experience has been. There is action for everybody. There is action for technical person, for an cyber expert. There is a action for a pilot. There is action for the guy who handles weapons or the guy who's going to design hypersonic weapons. So there is action for everybody. And I'm so happy, the men and women. We got, that Indian Air Force has got close to 18% officers are women now, which is the highest in any organization.
Even one group captain is commanding a fighter squadron.
Yeah, a fighter squadron. So my contention is that there is a great place, aviation is a great place for anybody, to join. And young people, Yes, of course, we need people to sit on the desks and do the various kinds of jobs, but we need guys who are patriotic, who are nation first, who are going to a great job defending this country, and yet enjoying good quality life and enjoying a good quality profession. Yes.
Thank you so much, sir. We were in conversation with Air Marshal Anil Chopra, who is highly decorated and accomplished officer of Indian Air Force, and still at his age, he's so young, full of energy. I think it is all our viewers must take one thing which I can see, that desire to learn, desire to excel should always be there. And what Sir has been telling us from last almost an hour or so about the development in the aerospace industry, how the cyber warfare is going to change the conventional technique of warfare. And he has actually covered the entire landscape of war, cyber war, hybrid warfare, and he has already spoken about the capability India does have in the field of fighter aircrafts, in the field of our own helicopters, our own transport fleet. But yes, we have miles to go before I sleep, as they say. We have done a lot of things, as sir has mentioned. We are doing so many things, and we have got MSMEs. We are working to create so many indigenous equipment for us. And one of the articles which I was reading, and it was mentioned that India is going to have 50,000 crore worth of rupees export they are eyeing in 2030, if I'm not wrong. And as on date, we are having 25,000
21,000.
21,000 crore in one of your articles. And I think sir mentioned about mumties, manning, unmanning, teaming, and he was right, because it is a gender bias when you say the men, and he has rightly said crewed and uncrewed. I think there's something fantastic where a loyal wingman he spoke about. And I think this concept one must understand, the cost of training a pilot is huge. Cost of aircraft is huge. And if we can have one aircraft flying and rest are the machines which are flying all together under the control of that pilot, and maybe in a times to come, so that pilot who's controlling will again be an AI engine sitting there with the loyal wingman around him. Yeah, I think this is amazing technology, and we are at testing times where the AI is coming into play, and we have not discussed about technology, quantum coming into play, the compute power coming into play. So all these things will actually reshape how the future battlefield be there. When you talk about the atmosphere, you spoke about the parabolic curve, and we are going to defeat that also with a hypersonic weapon exactly hitting the target with a speed of say 3 Mach or 4 Mach. I think some good things are happening in the warfare. And as you rightly said, we are in a networked domain. So you can reach anywhere, anytime. And when we are having sensors all over the places around, the information is traveling at a faster speed to the commander to take a decision, and decision will be not only informed, but at the right moment of time, so that the edge is with you during war. I thank you very much, sir, for your time. And we couldn't have asked anybody better than you with this kind of experience, the appointments you had in past. And you are heading a very, very prestigious institute of the country called Center for Air Studies, where you are writing so many magazines. And if I remember correctly, multiple books you have edited. And they are every month I find one or the other book coming out of the CAPS, and you have been guiding those researchers, and I'm fortunate to be part of CAPS. I've been going there to take lectures and all. But thank you so very much, sir. And the heartfelt thanks from the team of Data Security Council of India. You accepted our invitation, spared your time, you came all the way and enlightened us. And I'm very, very sure all the people who are watching today, Air Marshal Anil Chopra, will agree with me. This starting which we have done with this podcast is, I think we selected the best guy in this industry. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good day, sir.
Thank you.